Okay, well, it looks like people joining are slowing down, so I can get us started. Thanks everyone for being here and for joining this webinar, a win-win, why boosting SNAP enrollment in your school community matters. We're really excited to talk about this more and to be joined by some really great partners who are going to share more specifics on their on-the-ground experience and really kind of help showcase the possibilities. So with that, our presenting organizations today, I'm Chloe Eberhardt from No Kid Hungry, the Center for Best Practices, and I'm joined by my colleague Mia, who will introduce herself when she's part of the presentation. Mia's on our Texas team, and then we are joined by our amazing partners at Hunger Free Oklahoma and Altus Public Schools in Oklahoma as well. So Candace and Sabina, who will be introducing themselves when they're sharing their portion of this presentation. So just to share a little bit of housekeeping, this webinar is recorded, so we will be sharing that out with everyone afterwards. If you encounter any issues, technical issues, please feel free to put them in the chat and we can help you with that. And then otherwise with housekeeping, if you have questions for anyone sharing, there's the Q&A box at the bottom. Please feel free to put them in there and we'll be monitoring that. And then we're going to have a question and answer section closer towards the end. So have space to answer questions that come up throughout. If you do put them in the chat, hopefully we'll be able to catch those too. But if you can put them in the Q&A, that would be great. And then at the end of our webinar, a survey is going to pop up that will share, that will ask you to fill out just to give us feedback. We always want to improve. So thank you in advance for doing that. So I'm going to move us to our agenda. So those are that information about the housekeeping and then our agenda today. So we're going to do some high-level sharing on how SNAP supports schools, and we can talk a little bit more about what SNAP stands for. And for today's webinar, we're focusing on the connection between SNAP and schools, but in rural school settings. So we're going to talk a little bit more about why SNAP in rural schools, how it can support schools in these geographies. And then we're going to hear a lot more from Altus Public Schools and Hunger Free Oklahoma about how this work has been happening in Oklahoma and in their communities and how it looks specifically in rural areas. I think everything we're going to talk about today is applicable across the board. So know wherever you are, there's a lot that can be taken away from this, but there is some specifics that'll be really great for doing this work in rural communities. And then we're going to wrap up with some quick actions that you can take if you want to start doing SNAP in schools work. We'll have time for question and answers and really love to be able to offer and answer specific information. And then we'll wrap up. So I'm going to keep us going so we stay on time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about SNAP, what that stands for. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So it's an acronym, and this is a federal program that provides monthly grocery benefits on an EBT card that works like a debit card to purchase food at places people normally shop. Grocery stores, farmers markets, corner stores, and now online. So it provides this support to families with lower incomes. And SNAP is our largest federal anti-hunger program. So it really is available for people of all ages and for kind of cuts across different types of folks. So from young kids to older adults. And I think something that's important when we talk about No Kid Hungry and in the work here is that SNAP is our largest child nutrition program in the US. So around roughly half of the recipients are children themselves, a little under that. And then 2/3 of benefits go to households with families. So the other thing I want to say here about the SNAP program, I mean, of course, you can read some of the things here about who is eligible and qualifies. Things look a little different in each state, but generally it's serving people at incomes at 130% of the federal poverty level and below. Some states have that a little bit higher. And then it serves people of all stages in life and any US citizen and certain lawfully present non-citizens and receive benefits if they qualify. So it's available in here to support many of us if we need it. So I'll keep us moving. Let's go. We're going to talk a little bit about why we do this work and why we're focusing on SNAP in a school setting. So there's an enrollment gap when it comes to the SNAP program. Nationwide, 18% of participants that are eligible for the program are not participating. So that means that 1 in 5 individuals are missing out on benefits that they are eligible for. And we really want to close that gap. I think when it comes to families with children, generally there are higher participation in households with children, but that masks some of the reality that this participation gap can actually be higher for certain groups of people. So some that are listed here are immigrant and mixed status families, multi-generational families, and older adults that are the head of household or elderly heads of household with children. And there's so many different reasons, and I know Candace and Sabina will talk through some of the, and Mia too, will talk through some of the barriers and the whys, but what's here is some of the main reasons that kind of cut across wherever you are, that can be reasons that there's this enrollment gap. So just knowing about the program and who it serves is really important. Knowing that it's available and potentially can support you is a big factor. People may not know and be aware of the eligibility and how to access the program. And then there can be really difficult application process. Depending on where you live, your access to the internet or ability to get to an office, all of those things can be pretty high barriers, let alone filling out the paperwork, turning in all the documents you might be asked to turn in. And then I think the other piece here that is really important to share is that there is a lot of fear and stigma associated with the SNAP program. It can be fear of if participating in this program is going to impact someone's immigration status, or it can be fear that this isn't, what does this mean about myself, or how will this be reflected in my community if people find out? So all of those factors can drive things. So you'll see today a little bit more about how to counteract some of those feelings and stigma, and how that has been done in the specific situations here. And I think that really leads into our next slide, which is about why SNAP is important for schools. So first and foremost, I think one of the reasons we want to do this work is because SNAP, schools are a really trusted space for community and for families. And I think schools want to be able to support their students and their families with the resources they need. So making this connection between food assistance and the school system can really have great benefits on a lot of different sides. And we think it's a really trusted space that can help families connect with the program that may not currently be connected with it. So these are some of the main ways that SNAP can really be supportive to students, to kids, and to schools. So SNAP is proven to support education outcomes. So students that receive SNAP are more likely to graduate high school. And we're also going to have better focus on tests. And there's been some proven studies on math and reading outcomes related to SNAP. So it's really helpful for the education of children. It also is really helpful for school budgets. So SNAP means that students can be directly certified for free school meals. So if a student is receiving SNAP themselves or in a household that receives SNAP, that means they don't have to complete an application and they can get those free meals automatically. So it saves a lot of time for staff and costs to go through that. And when students are directly certified for free meals, schools and the nutrition department is going to get the maximum federal reimbursement rate for those meals. So that makes it possible or more possible to reach the thresholds for the community eligibility program. And thanks, Mia, for answering that question. So SNAP and direct certification boost the identified student percentages, which is part of that calculation. And then also SNAP and direct certification information and SNAP enrollment really helps secure more education funding for schools. I know Sabina is going to talk a little bit more about that too. So let's move to our next slide because I think that'll help make the connection around CEP. And then you can stop hearing from me and hear from our great partners that are going to be here. So we talked a little bit about this in the last slide, but I think good grounding for this conversation is understanding the community eligibility provision. So this provision allows all districts to feed all students for free. And so some of the things here that I think are important to pull out is what we were talking about, that the way to do that, the calculation to do that, is through the identified student percentage. What we have on here is that, either a school by themselves or a group of schools, a district, need to meet that 40% identified student percentage threshold to get to CEP eligibility. There's, of course, the USDA has a proposal out there right now reducing that threshold. So I think that might come up in our conversation today. But basically, the greater a school's ISP, the more financially viable CEP and those free meals for all students are. And what we know, kind of to get into the nitty gritty here just a little bit more, is that typically getting to the 60% ISP threshold makes it more financially viable. And so that is a big part of how SNAP enrollment can really help get that ISP to a more financially viable threshold to do the CEP program. So now that you've heard me say a million acronyms, and hopefully we've explained them well enough, I'm going to turn it over to Mia to walk us through why rural schools.
Yeah, thanks, Chloe. So for everyone here, my name is Mia Medina, and I'm the Senior Program Manager for No Kid Hungry Texas. So yes, today we are focusing on rural schools, and there's a couple reasons why. One of them being that there are higher barriers to SNAP access in rural communities. Transportation and limited office locations in rural areas makes it really hard for families to access and apply for SNAP. Here in Texas, a lot of folks utilize the food bank, for example, to help them with the SNAP application. And we have a lot of amazing food banks here in Texas, but unfortunately, they can't be everywhere all the time. Another issue too is limited broadband access in rural areas. There is an online application for SNAP where folks can fill it out themselves, but unfortunately, if you don't have reliable internet service, you're not able to access that either. Another thing we wanted to mention too is that food insecurity often feels different in rural areas. There's so many wonderful aspects of rural communities, but they also face really unique challenges like restricted access to healthcare, lack of infrastructure. There's less job opportunities, unfortunately. And as previously mentioned, there is a lack of transportation that limits their access to the nearest grocery store, often their nearest food pantry or food bank as well. And for any of you who are also in Texas, I'm sure you remember a couple years ago during our winter storm, a lot of our grocery stores, food banks, and even food pantries couldn't access food because of roadway conditions. And so when you're in a rural area as well, it makes it even more difficult to access that food. Something else, stigma and misinformation that exists everywhere, but particularly in rural communities, there are missed opportunities for these folks because they could really utilize SNAP, right? And SNAP helps families put food on the table, but the stigma and misinformation can keep people from signing up for this benefit. But SNAP doesn't just help families, it actually helps your local community too. Because SNAP benefits are spent on food, they actually support farmers, it supports food processors, distributors, and retailers, which puts that money directly back into your local economy. And so, to wrap all of this up, this is where schools can really come into play and be a supportive space for families, because they are a very trusted source of information for families and caregivers in rural communities. And so with that, I'm going to transition to a video that Candace is going to share with all of us. Candace is the Senior Manager of SNAP Programs at Hunger Free Oklahoma. And so we're really excited to hear from her.
Hello, I'm Candace Poppy Macedo, Senior Manager of SNAP Programs at Hunger Free Oklahoma. We're a nonprofit that leverages the power of collaboration to solve hunger by improving systems, policies, and practices. One way we do this is through SNAP in Schools, a collaborative project between Hunger Free Oklahoma, No Kid Hungry, school professionals, and community partners. We're grateful for our wonderful partners and appreciate this opportunity to spotlight promising practices in Oklahoma's rural SNAP outreach. With the goal of connecting eligible households to SNAP, our team is very interested in working in rural spaces because Oklahoma is primarily rural. Of Oklahoma's 77 counties, 59 have a rural designation by the United States Department of Agriculture. This is depicted on the map in the areas that have progressively darker shading. Today, we're proud to focus on some exciting work in Jackson County, which is located in the southwest part of our state. And I'd like to quickly share some key considerations that shape how Hunger Free Oklahoma supports our rural partners. First, we know that rural professionals are busy and often have multiple roles. So we look for ways to support and to make the work easier for partners. Second, families trust information from schools and other local partners. It's local voices that matter most. As experts in the communities, we feel rural partners are best suited to deliver key messaging. Third, not only is it important to raise awareness and educate rural communities about SNAP, it is also important to try to remove barriers by offering options to get SNAP application help. Lastly, it often takes multiple conversations and outreach strategies to foster action. Communication that is ongoing, conversational, and utilizes multiple voices helps to foster understanding and normalize connecting with food assistance. In this work, we believe our role is to listen, share strategies, build and refine resources, and elevate promising practices. So let's look at the promising practices that we see in Jackson County. They're great about using layered interactions. For example, at the beginning of the school year, they prep staff and launch SNAP outreach in their school system by stationing greeters at each of the locations during Meet the Teacher events. The greeters introduced SNAP and shared flyers as families entered. And then the teachers brought it up again when interacting with caregivers in the classrooms, pointing interested families to SNAP application assistance. Another promising practice we see in Altus is around leveraging community channels and community partner networks through SNAP outreach and sign-up events at the local library. Local communication channels raise awareness and promote application events, and trusted community partners talk about SNAP and offer application help. So you might wonder how it's going. In this school year alone, Altus has secured 6 core partner organizations working together on SNAP outreach. We've been able to train 24 local SNAP application assistants. The partners have fielded over 150 interest calls and helped 77 households to submit SNAP applications. It is my pleasure to introduce Sabina Garrett, the Child Nutrition Director, at Altus Public Schools.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Sabina Garrett. I am the Child Nutrition Director at Altus Public Schools, and I'm truly happy to be part of this initiative, and our district is as well. I am retired military, a hospital administrator with 26 years of service. So I bring health and wellness as a part of me to Altus schools, and my goal is to ingrain that same value in the staff and the students that we have here in our district. The child nutrition program is truly an important part alongside of SNAP. We try and feed the kids, and we also try and we also have to have financial security to make it work within our district. Our district is well aware of the impact of SNAP, and we also are very, very ingrained in the outreach efforts and opportunities that we have. Our district superintendent, Mr. Roe Warbus, is a true staunch supporter of taking care of our kids. He understands the link between eating at home and eating in the school system. He understands the importance of working with partners in multiple environments, not only in the district, but at different events that are occurring. And so he has truly been an encouragement for our district, along with the other district leaders that we have. So why does our school do SNAP outreach? Well, we have to look at operational funding stability. We have to make sure we understand the impact of direct certification to our district. And direct certification not only impacts feeding of the students, but it also impacts other federal funding that we get. Student eligibility is a key piece to all of this. And so as the child nutrition director, I keep my eye on where is our direct certification numbers, what are our numbers, what are our percentages, and I also watch it very closely because of community eligibility provision eligibility. We have 5 out of 7 schools that are participating as a CEP school and 2 that are not. At this point, we're starting to see a decline in our direct certification numbers. So this is one of the key reasons that we were looking for opportunities to help increase the SNAP enrollment and participation from our community. So another reason for SNAP outreach is because of providing healthy foods to students. And this extends not only at school, we're able to feed a lot of kids at school with our CEP schools, but there are kids that come to school that are hungry from home, and we see that and we hear that every single day. So that tugs at our hearts, and we know that we need to do more. So to do this, what we want to do is we have to go toward the outreach piece. We have to link into the community to make the SNAP awareness more of a forefront in the parents' minds. So as a district, we plan to go from the planning stage to the action stage to increase our SNAP awareness. So what we've done is we linked up early on with Hunger Free Oklahoma. This was as of last summer in July timeframe. And I talked with them about our concerns of our direct certification numbers and our link to try and improve SNAP enrollment in our area. So they worked with us very closely on a plan of action to implement very quickly. And I thought the best way to do this would be to interact with the parents at the back to school enrollment day that we have, where the parents and the students come to school and actually meet with the teachers on that very first day, the start of year day with the kids coming back. So we use that day as an opportunity to start our phased in approach with our SNAP recapture in the district to try and get more families educated on the process and to enroll and determine eligibility. So at the start of year, we worked with Hunger Free Oklahoma. We had different promotional materials that we used. And what we did is we wanted to have a continual contact with the parent when they came in the school. That way, you can tell a person one time, but if you have a continual message throughout their whole visit, maybe it will hit home with them and maybe they'll think about it a little bit more after the fact. And so we worked up a process within our school district, met with the principals met with their staff. The message and the education of SNAP was consistently relayed across the district. And then when the parents came in on that first day of school with their children to go meet the teacher in the classroom, they were met at the door by a greeter, giving some key talking points on SNAP and the opportunity they have for applying for SNAP. They were then sent to the classroom. The teacher then had some key little short bullet points to say to the parents, the guardians as well. And then the parent walked out of that building with a flyer in their hand that gave them avenues to be able to initiate an application process or to just call and get information. So our first event was successful by working together within the district and the great buy-in by everyone in our district to make this happen. So with that, the first successful effort, it can't end there. We had to move on. So we were in prep for phase 2 at that point. So phase 2 was with our community outreach. We can't do everything in a district. We have to do it as partners. It doesn't take one person, it takes a team. So prior to the second semester starting, which is in January, our district met at the library with several core partners within the community, and we talked about the need of SNAP. That need was agreed upon by everyone. Each of us has a different take on SNAP and the effects to the clients that are introduced to their organizations. So the need was established, and what we did is we decided on what are we going to do to take action. So we decided on having a SNAP event day in our community. So we identified 2 days in the community that we could do this. And we had to look at all the key components that it would take to have an event and to plan this event. So we looked at logistics and staffing and the process. How would these families enter into our, come to our SNAP event? And the library volunteered to be a lead on this event. So we were able to base our event at the library and actually plan around the logistical availability of the things that they had. The library was just amazing. They were able to also engage with other multiple community partners. And these partners provided volunteer support. They provided that conduit of information to their clients. And we also were able to connect up many people with just questions. We had the library countering calls that would come in. All of the volunteers that were at this SNAP event, they had to be trained in advance. And so it was important that they understand the process of the SNAP application computer system and so programs. So we made sure our volunteers were all educated and trained on that, and that each of our partners were engaged and were a big part of our effort. So gaining partner support doesn't happen by itself. You have to have that prep. You have to have that partner prep. We had individualized contact with our partners. We made sure that we had volunteer support that were bilingual, both English and Spanish. Is very important in our area. And we were vested in our partners getting the training that they needed. So the community partners really showed that they care, they saw the need, and they also saw the value for SNAP awareness. So our partner voices are heard in the many quotes that you see on your screen there. And we had quite a few that would not fit on this screen, but these partners were truly instrumental in this event being a success. And you see the diversity of partners in the areas that they represent in our community. You see the synergy in these messages and those keywords like access for free food, community, supporting those at risk in the community, SNAP being vital, finding solutions to the problems. these messages are how we all feel. And so coming together as one strong partnership team is what every community needs to do to truly make an impact of SNAP in their community. So we had dedicated effort, we got the word out. So then we needed to make sure we had a solid, sound promotional strategy moving forward. So our SNAP promotion included very specific messages, very succinct and to the point. We made sure that we took advantage of all opportunities, such as the newspaper, social media, Facebook messaging, flyers, and banners. We had multiple banners made up for both inside and outside of the library to announce the SNAP opportunity to come in and do an application or just get assistance or ask questions. What we paid close attention to was the timing and the message that was printed on the material. But promotion was very important because not everybody has a computer, has Facebook. Some may be listening to the radio. So we did take advantage of every opportunity possible. And the key thing with promoting is you have to have that clear message on the messaging. And so that clear, essential message was key. So on our messaging, we wanted to let the client really feel empowered to take action. We didn't want it to be a stigma or a point of shame. It's important to normalize the message because we are all feeling that same pinch at the grocery store as those who are in the economically disadvantaged categories. So this wasn't targeting them as a group. We wanted to give them the feeling that, this was important to us and we know it's important to them. So we made sure our message was both English and Spanish. We made sure that from the flyers prepared, it showed the convenience to the client on both the time and also different avenues they could make to put in a SNAP application. A lot of people did not want to come to the library, so they called the SNAP hotline directly, but we provided them that information on what the number was to call. Or the the hours they could come to the library on the SNAP event days. We made sure that there were hours in the evening and hours in the daytime to try and be a convenience to the parents. That we also allowed for different avenues, not only as walk-ins, but they could call and make appointments or just talk to the front desk at the library. Our partnering teams focused on the event logistics alongside with us because logistics in itself is very challenging, as with any event you do in the community or in a school district. So we looked at the library in itself, and they have a team conference, an event conference room. So we were able to utilize the layout that they had. They had a nice half wall that could be moved in and out in the center of the room to make two sections in the room. So we had one section of the room that was set up, number one, as a greeting point for the people entering the door after they had a nice welcome from volunteers coming into the library. We had a whiteboard with a scrolling message on the wall that showed in both English and Spanish information on SNAP while they were waiting. There was an overflow space for sitting, and it's not a huge area, but it was enough. And the setup is really key. We offered some refreshments. We offered a children's center for the kids to play, and it was well taken advantage of. While the parents went on the other side of the half wall and sat down with one of our volunteers to actually do the SNAP application entry. We were at the computer as the volunteer entering their information. We had privacy screens on the tables at each computer station, and to give them a feeling of confidentiality and that what they said was important. And a lot of them were not comfortable with using the computer. So we sat there and did the entry for them. They watched every single thing we did. And we made sure that we minimized any type of hearing of information via those privacy screens. I can't tell you how important that was. We were fully engaged with the client from the start, from entering the door until they got up and departed. And when that client left the SNAP event, they left with a handout in their hand that actually gave them their case number for their SNAP application, the important information they needed, the information that a caseworker from DHS would call them back within a 2-week period. If they didn't get a call back, they had a phone number to call and check on the status or talk to a caseworker. So the client left with the information they needed, and they felt empowered that they were in control of their application and they could provide additional information as was needed. So this was truly an amazing process, and it was a lot of thoughtful planning, promotional materials that went into this. So what's next? So what we're looking at next is we have our outreach efforts. They have to continue. We need to keep moving forward. The library has initiated a SNAP Day at the library each month. This is going to be promoted, and hopefully we will keep this in the forefront of our community families' minds, and they will come in and we will continue doing SNAP registration for them, helping them with that, or even uploading documents, helping them whatever avenue we need to get the information in so they can be assessed and determine whether they're eligible for benefits or not. Our school district's going to stay engaged. To start a year again is a perfect opportunity, and we're going to continue looking for other ways that we can look for those families in need. We see the children that are hungry, and so we have different ways that we can find out and try and not necessarily target those people. We want the message to be clearly and consistently given to all, but we also want to provide for the need of all of those children that are truly hungry. We want to make sure that we keep those multiple access points available in the community, whether it be the library, whether it be the school district. The local health department has a community health worker that is also doing applications. All of those avenues are out there, and we sometimes just need to tell that new person that just moved to town how they can get into this and navigate that process. Direct certification is key as a district. We have to continue watching those numbers and keep pushing our efforts forward to stay on top of it. So hopefully some of the ideas that we presented today will offer you a good start in what you're doing in your districts or in your community. It's not always simple, but it's definitely worthwhile. Every community has partners that will join in with you. So I hope that you will truly reach out to those partners. I want to say a special thank you to Hunger Free Oklahoma for the many hours and the many dedicated efforts made on promotion and marketing and preparation for the event, and actually showing up at our event to help us with the little kinks that may have come up. I also want to say thank you to our local partners. These are just a few that are shown on the screen. There's a lot of support that goes into an event like this, both up front and behind the scenes. So they were truly instrumental to any success we've had, and we will continue that strong partnership with them moving forward. So I will transition back to Chloe so you can continue on. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sabina. That was just chock full of really great information for people doing this work. So I wanted, before we move to the question and answer section, because I know some questions have already come in through the Q&A box and keep adding them. Just wanted to share really briefly that there's a lot of things that you can do if you're interested in starting this work, and we have some resources to support that. I also think how Sabina framed this, and Candace too, is phasing in that work and trying things out and building on it. So I think with our next slide, there's a couple examples of what you can do. And starting small is okay and great, and that can be something to build off of. So I think really what I heard from what was shared is getting the information out there, reaching families and caregivers in multiple avenues and ways, and leveraging the school communications can be a really important tool to help spread the word about SNAP. I think Sabina really hit on the importance of partnership to really provide support for families. So who are partners that can be pulled in to do this work? Schools don't have to do this alone, and those who might have more of that experience, like Hunger Free Oklahoma and SNAP application assistants, are often really excited to partner with schools and districts wanting to do this work. So there's a link here, and we'll drop that into the chat as well, to a SNAP Outreach in Schools toolkit that we have here at No Kid Hungry. It's just something to build off of, knowing that Candace and Sabina shared amazing messaging that's really targeted and specific to what works in their communities. So want to give space for questions and answers. We're obviously Sabina's here, but Candace is too. I know we had a recorded video, but Candace is also here to answer questions. So I'll start us off with the ones that have come in, and definitely please add more. So we had a question about what's a better practice to work at the district or school level for partnership? And specifically, if at the district level, is there a specific role within school districts that someone like a food bank should be engaging with to bring SNAP outreach to households? So I don't know if Candace or Sabina, one of you want to kick us off, and the other can add things in.
I think it's important that you engage at the district level initially. The district has the strategy and the vision for what's going on within their schools in their district, and their support it goes a long way in trying to make things happen, and they can are more than happy to listen to thoughts of community partners like the food bank or others to try and come up with new ideas and new strategies to play off of.
I agree. And one thing that I think we find helpful is that we often will, you start where you can. So you start where the relationships are, those opportunities arise. And sometimes it does help to talk at a school perspective or with school professionals, just to get a better idea of what the flow looks like and what's realistic and feasible, learning a little bit of the lingo and better understanding some of the challenges. All of that information can really be great in the early days. And then it really helps when you approach the school districts, because you're not starting from scratch in those spaces. You can start from a place of presenting the value of what you have to offer, and at least an initial understanding of what that reality looks like for students and district personnel. So to the food bank piece, I would say that in our work, both of the food banks, Oklahoma has two major food banks here in the state that serve the most of the pantry networks. And our food banks are subcontractors with our state outreach plan, and they have staffers that have gone through and have trained to provide SNAP application assistance. So they're considered one of our community partners, but they also are available often to visit. We've got libraries in our state who and other places that host event days for resources or resource fairs. And our food bank folks are really great about helping to staff those. They also include SNAP information with their pantry pickup publications and on site. And so, yeah, anywhere that we see folks that have need, which pantries do, that's a great time to continue to mention SNAP.
Thanks, Sabina. Thanks, Candace. Okay, so we have two questions that I think are related, so I'll kind of ask them together, and would love both of your perspectives and experience on this. So how do you address opposition to social service programs? And then how are you able to overcome parents' fears of either kids finding out or other community members finding out? In this question, we are a rural agricultural community with a lot of pride, and folks may not fill out applications even if they qualify. So I was wondering if anyone else has come across this challenge before.
Well, I definitely see that as well in our district. Even just with a free and reduced meal application, you have that same fear and that same resistance to filling it out because you don't want other people to know. That was the reason that we tried to maintain such a level of confidentiality in doing the application process with the volunteers, and to give them that comfort level that that their information is not going to be shared. I think the parent fears are very real, and we have to try and get beyond that. That's why we did such a significant effort in flyers and in messaging through the phone. That we looked at the different grade levels of the kids, and we promoted a little bit differently from the smaller schools and the larger schools, because the parents may not even know that they can do this, because the kids may not take that information home. So as far as social services and all, we try and work through with our counselors very closely, and they are relaying the messages and talking one-on-one with the families. And I think that's important. I would much prefer to talk to somebody off the phone than to send an email. So I think that one-on-one discussion is really critical to opening the parent up, or the other individual you're talking to, into being willing to take that step forward, and also being willing to help them with that, not just throw it on them to give them that feeling of assistance.
Candace, I'm so sorry. We're having trouble hearing you right now.
Is that any better?
That is better. Yes.
I might take off these. We may try it without. Can you hear me now? Okay. I was just going to say that COVID's really shifted it with inflation, and how it hurts those receipts and going and shopping, and just all of us are struggling with stretching our food budgets. So that's I think an opportunity to leverage just in the normalizing of it, to talk about, okay, it's just resilient empowerment for us to look at what resources are in front of us and to fully utilize those. And so I think that helps a little bit in our framing pieces now. But for the sensitivities for families and concerns related to what people are thinking, or awkwardness or embarrassing situations, that's where having multiple avenues to plug in can be very helpful. So we often will message widely, again, to normalize, and we love it when influencers within the community and leaders are willing to talk about SNAP and do it regularly, because it sets the tone. It says, hey, SNAP is a good program. It can help. And it also messages to folks that a way to say that we accept it, and that we encourage you to accept it too. And so, but then having subtle avenues, ways that, okay, if I want to get on online and on my own phone in a discrete place, or if I wanted to get a quick QR code and put my information in, have somebody call me back, providing folks ways to plug in a way that feels natural and fits for them, and continually making those available, because you may not need it now, but you may know someone who could benefit from any of these resources, or it may just be that later on that it comes first to mind if we continue to kind of put it out there and just normalize it.
Thank you both so much. So we had one more question come in. Let me, so this question says, we had some success increasing enrollment during COVID with the maximum benefits. So SNAP benefits during the public health emergency were boosted to the maximum amount for household sizes. And that recently just went away. But what are some strategies for encouraging families to apply when the benefit may be small? So yeah, that's kind of the question there. What are some strategies related to smaller benefit amounts and how to encourage people to apply?
Well, I think you're going to run into issues with, when you have income-based programs, they're going to look and see what does the household bring in. And so SNAP looks at that, and the free and reduced meal application looks at that. But what our district does is we look outside of those avenues, direct certified avenues, and we try and bring in other things through federal grant funding, the fresh fruit and vegetable program. We send fruit to the classroom for the kids to eat. That doesn't help with them getting the free meals, but you have to follow USDA standards and guidelines on approval of who gets those free meals. Our district as well, I mean, when we lost that everybody ate free benefit and went back to the normal, that's where CEP, community eligibility provision, was so key in maintaining. It's good for a 4-year period, and once you can get that, then you have to keep that percentage up. You know, you'd mentioned before 60% is a really truly a financial viable percentage. It is, but you can have down to 40% and also still make it. And I'm a example of that in our district. You can make it at 40%. You just have to very carefully watch what you're doing and your budget, and apply for all those free type of dollar opportunities that are out there from the state and from the federal government. So parents do have a struggle. They do when their income doesn't meet it, or when we have a military airman that's right at that limit, but they're like $5 over and they're not going to be eligible for it. We can't make it happen, but we can just continue to provide avenues to connect them with resources that can help them.
And I would add that part of the, the benefit conversation, because that does come up in the sense of, okay, it's kind of a return on investment. We do the mental map on, okay, how much effort do I put into this, or hassle factors related to these efforts in correlation to what I'm going to get back. And so one thing with SNAP, depending on your state and the structures in Oklahoma, we like to talk about some of the perks related to your SNAP benefits. So we talked about how it benefits schools and how it can lay the groundwork for being able to bring additional meals and programs and services and reach to help not only the students that are on SNAP, but also those that are, their classmates that can benefit from these additional programs when the need is accurately measured in a community through the direct certification and looking at who's qualified for programs. Kiddos get free meals at school if they're on SNAP. And then some of those other perk pieces in our state, we have an incentive program that matches SNAP purchases of produce. And so it's an opportunity to, again, stretch those dollars. We like to talk about the economic benefits. So if, looking at the multiplier effect related to bringing in the federal dollars into our local economy, and how folks participating that are eligible to SNAP, how that's kind of a service for their community. And so it kind of really shifts it from typical mindsets of it being a taker type of situation and it being a giver or a contributor space. And again, that language is, just looking at some of the extreme ways that folks tend to focus on or have misinformation about the programs, but really getting a good understanding of how we're all interconnected and how the application process, again, in our state also would help to qualify for additional services with our Human Services Department. So whether that's energy assistance or tying in with other types of available funds, the SNAP application is kind of that gateway place to be able to do that.
Thank you, Sabina. Thank you, Candace. That's all the questions we got in, and I think it's a good transition point to kind of wrap up. So wanted to make sure folks saw that there are some resources to support, and obviously this recording will have all of the information that's in the slides and some of the great messaging that Sabina and Candace highlighted. But putting in the chat the SNAP Outreach in Schools toolkit, and then I'll add kind of a high level, what are the benefits of SNAP for schools, a lot of what you heard today. Finally, we have more webinars from the Center for Best Practices coming up. There's actually quite a few coming up, so check them out. I'll be on one next week talking about pandemic EBT for this summer, but there's a lot of great stuff from my colleagues here. So really just want to close by saying thank you so much to Sabina and Candace for just your wealth of information, the detail which you provided, the specifics on really how you've approached this work with empathy and partnership and community. I've learned a lot from it. I hope others, and I know others have. So I'm really grateful for your time. Thank you everyone for being here. If you want to get in touch or learn more, there's our website, and we'll be sharing out this recording so y'all can see that or share it with colleagues. So thank you all so much. We're really grateful for your time today.